What's up, everybody? D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today it is time. It's like the day of reckoning is here. Today, the day we have all been waiting for about 10 years now. Not quite, but we're getting there. Today, we talk about a Bombshell article which was just dropped, which blew the lid open on Godzilla -1's sequel's release date and seemingly confirmed Shin Godzilla 2. Let's talk about it. I cannot believe this is happening. I might have to cancel my movie tickets. I was supposed to go to a movie in just a few minutes, and I already dropped a video today. So please do me a favor when you're done here. Go check out my brand new Godzilla Kong Supernova video about if Godzilla and Kong are going to space. We talk about some fun stuff in that video. We got cool set photos and details on Supernova, so go check that video out. Please show it some love. I know this one's gonna overshadow it. And let's get into it, because there's a lot to get through and I don't have a ton of time. Starting out with some artwork like always, I figured I'd throw it in here. This is unofficial news and updates after all, and I'm finally on the breaking news again, which is so hype. This piece comes to us from Godzilla 3, an artist I love to feature their work on. This is their Godzilla -1. He looks awesome. He's roaring here in front of the smoke. I love the pose of him. He's got a very nice Godzilla -1 looking pose. He looks sick. And then they also did this one, which I'm showing off for thematic reason, of Shin Godzilla with the flames behind him and this hole carved through a building. This would have been a great shot if we saw something like that in the movie. He looks sick here. I love that he looks all purple, like he's still charged up, and then you can see what looks like a bunch of flesh in front of him, like that giant chunk of flesh that falls off of him in the movie. That is so cool. So I figured I'd show those two pieces off. I think they're really neat and they deserve some love. Next up, I've gotten a lot of DMs and questions about this on Twitter. I've gotten a few people commenting about it as well. Did I accidentally spoil the Shin Godzilla 2 announcement this morning when I tweeted this out saying maybe someday with Shin Godzilla and then the other kaiju behind him? What I will say is that if I did know that there was potentially a Shin Godzilla sequel in development, I didn't know the news was gonna drop today. I couldn't have on purpose timed this tweet to go out alongside that news. What is the news? What happened? What's going on? Well, a major bombshell article was dropped by Bloomberg. Now, Bloomberg, they're a big news website that are getting into the entertainment space. They are considered very reputable. And this article feels like it would be very random for this to have popped up and not meant anything at all. Like, just to be completely without base, you know, for them to report on this news without having some level of confidence in it. Bloomberg Japan is the news outlet that back in March seemed to confirm the Godzilla -1 sequel, and they're the one that released that big article about Toho's 3-year plan, the big 3-year push Toho was working on. If you don't remember, Toho's going to be investing 120 billion yen in accelerating Godzilla's globalization over the next 3 years. This is a big push to get the Japanese Godzilla globalized, and will include things like animated projects, films, television shows, and video games. That was a big thing, is that they confirmed both mobile games and console games, which had people very hyped. That was also the article where they announced Toho's launching the new Toho One subscription in Japan for their Toho cinemas. It was also where they seemed to confirm that the Godzilla -1 sequel is coming out, as it is a direct sequel to Godzilla -1, which is something that still to this day, Toho themselves through their official home press channels, whether that's the Godzilla website or Toho's official press release websites, they've never officially referred to this next Takashi Yamazaki movie as the Godzilla -1 sequel, and they're not the ones that dropped this news either. The same grain of salt that I told you guys to take back with the original Bloomberg report, where we talked about all of that news, take that same grain of salt here as well. While this news doesn't surprise me, that doesn't mean that I'm taking this as a 100% confirmation either. This Bloomberg report could always be a report written by someone who heard something from someone else who heard something. You know, it might not be directly associated with Toho, although again, I really think if Toho didn't make them walk back their first major article, I don't think that that's gonna happen here. We'll wait and see what happens. It's still a developing story. This is brand new news, but to go through this major Bloomberg article here, Bloomberg announced Godzilla's global takeover strategy. Toho is looking to expand Godzilla into video games, attractions, and more. We already knew about the games. The attractions are things like the new Godzilla The Ride, which I just did an enormous deep dive on. Please go check that deep dive out. Please go watch that video, show it some support, and like that video. As I said on that video, I strongly believe that if that video gets to 40,000 likes, the most likes we've ever had in news and updates, there's a pretty good chance we could get exclusive Godzilla The Ride Great Clash content for this channel. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't like this video as well, because if we can get this video to 40,000 likes, whew, we will be well on our way. So like this video right now, please like this video, go do it! Anyways, Toho is seeking to make themselves, Toho Studios, a home name on the global stage. They want to become internationally iconic. This is an effort led by Chief Executive Officer Hiroyasu Matsuoka, who we've talked about recently quite a lot on this channel, who is the great-grandson of Toho company founder, which I did not know. Matsuoka took power in 2022 and wants to expand Toho's influence, inspired by companies like Sony and Nintendo, which are home names in America. That could be why since 2022 we've seen an enormous expansion in Godzilla's IP in terms of crossovers in the video game space, in the mobile game space, even into comic books and more. We've seen an enormous push since 2022 for Godzilla to become more of a staple, especially in the West, so this is very likely Matsuoka's work. He's doing a tremendous job. The international push is an effort to overcome Japan's aging and shrinking population while capitalizing on the international interests in Japanese pop culture growing overseas. This is again information that we covered in that other video. Toho's acquisition of G-Kids for $255 million is part of this big effort. G-Kids is an anime distributor and is the ones handling the re-release of Shin Godzilla very soon. In another video, we discussed how Matsuoka opened up about the fact that they were worried that Godzilla -1 might have been like a one-time hit and that they weren't going to be able to repeat the success of -1 overseas. And so in an effort to overcome that, they partnered with G-Kids to distribute Shin Godzilla, which in my opinion seems like a bit of like a test run to see how much popularity there is for Godzilla outside of Godzilla -1. But they partnered with G-Kids to see if they could continue to distribute Godzilla films overseas with ease, just like they did with Godzilla -1. And the upcoming Shin Godzilla re-release this August is highly anticipated. And now we're seeing that it maybe makes a little more sense why they picked Shin Godzilla of all the Godzilla movies. Matsuoka and Koji Yude, Toho's international head, are developing films, video games, and television shows based on the company's existing properties such as Godzilla and Jujutsu Kaisen. They state that Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero Academia represent the peak of their animation, which might be a bigger opportunity for the company than Godzilla himself. Which makes sense, anime's a little more mainstream than Godzilla, and also there's more variety in anime than just one series. You know, there's many franchises, not just Godzilla himself. They open up a bit more about the Godzilla The Ride, saying the Godzilla 4D ride will be a big feature as well. This will be opening in the Sabune Amusement Park and will be exported to 40 other locations in the US, Canada, Netherlands, Germany, and China down the line. I have no idea when that international release will happen for Godzilla The Ride, but yes, we love to hear it. The first Godzilla The Ride didn't make it to the United States, but I am very, very excited for Godzilla The Ride Great Clash to show up. That is gonna be so hype. I can't wait for Godzilla The Ride Great Clash. I think it's gonna be so cool. They're also trying to transform Hibiya into a major theater hub. Hibiya, of course, is where Godzilla Square is, and it's a pretty fun area to go if you're a Godzilla fan. Go check out Godzilla Ground Zero Episode 1 if you want to hear more about that, where I traveled to Tokyo and take you guys to some of the filming locations for Godzilla movies over the years. They are seeking to grow their overseas revenue by 30% over the next 3 years. Again, that's just more information we covered in the other video. They are mostly looking for opportunities to grow Godzilla's brand. They consider Godzilla to be the cornerstone of Toho's film legacy, and they report that the franchise has earned more than $3 billion globally. I'm very curious if that includes the MonsterVerse, as the MonsterVerse itself is a $2 billion property without the Japanese Godzilla. So is all the other 30 plus Japanese Godzilla films only worth $1 billion? I wouldn't think so. I'd actually think that they're splitting that in half, and Godzilla overall is really more like a $5 billion property between the Japanese Godzilla since 1954 until now and the US side of things. That's the guess I would make if I had to. Here's where we get into the major news. They state that Godzilla -1 was a turning point. Toho doesn't see much of the profit from the MonsterVerse films simply due to the licensing agreement they have with Legendary, although they do distribute those films in Japan and they do make the profit for the films in Japan, but they don't make the bulk of the money that those films make in the United States, for instance. Those movies do enormous numbers. They're obviously the most financially successful Godzilla films out there. New Empire itself is technically speaking the most financially successful Godzilla film released. But Godzilla -1 proved that they can do it. They can release a Japanese Godzilla film on their own in the US and internationally and get major profits from it. Although this article does have some inaccuracies to it. Again, grains of salt, my friends, grains of salt. They state that Godzilla -1 was made for a budget of $15 million, when in fact it was actually made for far less than that, according to Takashi Yamazaki, somewhere closer to $10 million. The first major bombshell announcement is actually to do with Monarch Legacy of Monsters. They state that Legendary and Toho have produced a second season of Monarch Legacy of Monsters for next year. This actually isn't the information we previously heard. If you'll remember, the information we previously previously heard, which came from the Toy Fair with a Playmates representative talking about the upcoming Monarch figures. He stated that Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2 would come out at the end of this year, although it could do the same thing that first season did, where it starts in November and runs through January of next year, which would technically mean both are correct. Next up, Godzilla Minus 2 has a release date, sort of. The sequel to Godzilla Minus 1, once again, it's stated to be a direct sequel to Godzilla Minus 1, as it would make sense it would be, although again, still no official word. The sequel for Godzilla Minus 1 is stated to be planned for as early as next year. I've seen some people saying that it'll be as early as this year, like inaccurately reporting this news article, as early as next year. That's not saying that it'll officially come out next year, but it should. Here's why. 2026 is kind of the deadline. If they don't release Godzilla Minus 1 in 2026, they can't release it in 2027 because we already know there's a pre-existing relationship between Warner Bros. And Toho in which they cannot both distribute Godzilla films from their respective countries and studios in the same calendar year. This was why Godzilla Minus 1 couldn't be released internationally in territories where it didn't come out in 2023 and 2024 because Godzilla Kong: The New Empire was gonna come out in those territories later that year, which means that they're gonna have to do it by 2026. I've also seen some people thinking it was saying that it will come out early next year. It is saying as early as next year, and that the film should be ready next year. Again, this lines up with timelines I've discussed on the channel already. I've talked about how the film should be going through the stages of production soon. It's going to be filming this August through December. That means that they'll, from there, have about a year to get the movie ready for November 3rd in order to hit the Godzilla Day release date on November 3rd, 2026, which is what I think is going to happen. This is all in an effort to build upon Godzilla Minus 1's success, just more reasons why it would be a direct sequel to Godzilla Minus 1 and not just a random anthology film. Then Bloomberg mentions a potential sequel to Shin Godzilla is in the works, and it's just kind of thrown into the article as if it means nothing. It says Toho is planning a sequel for Godzilla Minus 1 as soon as next year, plus a potential sequel to the film Shin Godzilla. That just is dropped in there like it means nothing, but that means a lot. This isn't the first we've ever heard about a Shin Godzilla sequel either. Hideaki Anno actually pitched a Shin Godzilla sequel all the way back in the day in 2016, and it was rejected because he was going too cheesy with it. It was going to be too cheesy, and the whole goal was to play into the elements that Shin Godzilla didn't, to make it basically like the antithesis to Shin Godzilla, a full-on goofy, fun, cheesy Godzilla brawl movie. It just wasn't the direction they were looking to head in at the time. If you think that news came out of absolutely nowhere, like I know G-Man is not taking this article at face value and does not take this as confirmation, just know this didn't come out of absolutely nowhere. This isn't even the first time I've discussed on this channel a Shin Godzilla sequel. I have it linked down below, you can go check it out for yourself, but during Godzilla Festival 2022, while announcing Godzilla Minus 1, the representative there, on behalf of Toho, doing the announcements, did discuss the sequel to Shin Godzilla. He teased that Godzilla Minus 1 was going to be the film that follows Shin Godzilla but is not connected to it. Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi were not involved in that movie because they were busy with Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen Rider. They then announced Takashi Miyazaki would be the director of the Godzilla Minus 1 sequel. They announced the release date of Godzilla Minus 1 being for the 69th anniversary, which they were counting as the 70th anniversary. And that's where things got very interesting because the announcer says he's sorry because he knows everybody wanted a sequel to Shin Godzilla, but Shin Godzilla is very important to Mr. Hideaki Anno, and Toho would not continue without him. Director Takashi Miyazaki could have asked for a continuation of Shin Godzilla, but chose not to because he decided that he was too different of a filmmaker from Shinji Higuchi and Hideaki Anno to be able to continue the Shin Godzilla legacy. Mr. Higuchi could not return yet to do Shin Godzilla without Anno because he was still working on other projects, and Anno was busy, so he also couldn't return. That was the stated reason at Godzilla Festival 2022 for why we were getting Godzilla Minus 1 when we were getting Godzilla Minus 1, and it seems likely to me that a Shin Godzilla sequel might have been in the works this whole time, kind of quietly behind the scenes, being developed ever since 2016, and they just couldn't figure out where to take it next. Hideaki Anno, Shinji Higuchi both wound up busy. Toho didn't want to let Godzilla fade into obscurity and just kind of die, like what has happened in the past. That's something they have continued to discuss, how they don't like having these major long hiatuses between Godzilla films, and so they wanted to get Godzilla Minus 1 out there. So they brought Takashi Yamazaki and made a brand new Godzilla film. All the while, Shin Godzilla 2 may have just been put on the back burner waiting to see what happens with Godzilla Minus 1. To everybody's surprise, Godzilla Minus 1 wound up being an enormous international success, and so now they really have no option but to continue with Godzilla Minus 1 and do a sequel to that before eventually looping back around to their original plan for a Shin Godzilla sequel. That is what I think is the most likely scenario for what has happened here, is that the whole time they've wanted to do a Shin Godzilla 2, but they just haven't been able to because of contractual obligations and scheduling conflicts, and now the success of Godzilla Minus 1 pushes them down the route of continuing that series over Shin Godzilla. I've also seen some people misidentify, thinking that Shin Godzilla might not be developed into a sequel necessarily, but some other project. That's because this article was not done dropping bombshells. The final announcement in this article was that an untitled Southeast Asia focused Godzilla project is in the works. We don't know what it is or what that means, but what we do know is that the Southeast Asia Godzilla Celebration short film was released a couple months ago and has gained over 2.6 million views on YouTube. This project, 70 Years of Godzilla: A New Roar, is a short film that sees Godzilla travel across Southeast Asia. It was made by Toho Entertainment Asia, a new sub-studio of Toho entering the ring. We have Toho Studios in Japan, Toho International in the United States, and now Toho Entertainment Asia. This is a Bangkok studio, and this was actually made by Thailand's Igloo Studios. It was said to be celebrating fans in Southeast Asia for the first time, as they really have not gotten any fanfare, and Godzilla has not appeared in Southeast Asia over the course of his filmography. But I even speculated in that very video that seems kind of like a weird reason, like it didn't seem to have enough weight to it, and I proposed the theory that it's very possible that they want to start producing Godzilla films outside of the US and maybe even outside of Japan, and if they're gonna open the door to Southeast Asia, that'd be a pretty cool way to do so. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, I'm saying I could see that occurring. It'd be very confusing to have 3 officially licensed Godzillas from 3 different countries going on at once, with the Japanese Godzilla, who now is split in 2 between -1 and Shin Godzilla, the American Godzilla in the MonsterVerse, and then way over on the side a brand new Southeast Asian Godzilla. That'd be pretty shocking, and it would also create a really weird release schedule. If each country couldn't distribute Godzilla films without bumping into other calendar releases of Godzilla films, it'd get very messy very quickly, which makes me think that this could be something else. Like they said, it's just an untitled project. Maybe it's going to be a series of short films. Maybe it'll be like the Godzilla Festival films. There was of course the live action ones, and then there was also those animated ones from Gemstone, which were fantastic. It could be something like that. It could be a television show. They do want to do more television shows. It could be a live action television show. They did say they want to start doing more of those as well, or it could even be a new anime coming out. In the mix, there's one thing that was never mentioned, and that's Godzilla Singular Point Season 2. I think it's time to say that Godzilla Singular Point Season 2 is probably never coming out. I've heard some rumors that the reason the show was canceled, quote unquote, was because it either didn't do well enough in the ratings or was critically panned, neither of which are true. The show was actually a really big success in Japan. It was both critically praised and had big numbers. I'm not allowed to say the reason. I do actually know the reason why there's no Godzilla Singular Point Season 2. I will say that it's a behind the scenes reason, and it's not a situation where they did not want to make one. I'll just say that. They did want to make one. I don't think we're gonna get it. I personally don't think it's going to happen, and I think this article's not mentioning it is basically as close as we can call it to say that it's probably not going to occur. Although who knows, never say never. They did say they want to keep working on Godzilla anime, so I guess we'll see. Whew, that is our big news and updates for today. I would love to hear what you guys think about this one. Please comment down below and let me know. I'm so hyped to see what you guys think. I'm going to give a huge thank you to all of my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I'm able to continue to make videos like this for you. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below, where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. Again, please go show some love to my Godzilla The Ride video, and please go show some love to my last Supernova video. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man, out.